You can save a ton of time, energy, and money in your recovery just by knowing what not to do in the first few weeks and months of breaking free from porn. I wish someone had told me this when I first started. So today I'm going to teach you exactly what not to do in your early days of recovery, from your first day all the way to hitting a full year or more of sobriety. And stick around to the end because I'm going to share my number one mistake that people make well into their recovery, sometimes years into their recovery, and is the biggest thing that keeps most people stuck in the porn trap for life. If you master this last one, it will help you truly break free from this addiction at the root source so that your recovery is deep, sustainable, and most importantly, effortless.
1, 2, 3, 4.
Hi, I'm Jeremy Lipkowitz, and with over 12 years of meditation experience as a mindfulness trainer and coach for high performers, I've become obsessed with helping people break free from compulsive, unhealthy behaviors and addictions and step into a life of true freedom so that they can finally become their best selves and cultivate deeper and lasting fulfillment. I've created Unhooked, the Breaking Porn Addiction podcast, to give you simple, actionable, step-by-step strategies to master your mind and optimize your life. This is Unhooked. So hey guys, welcome back to the channel. If you're new here, I'm Jeremy Lipkowitz, men's coach, former porn addict myself, and founder of Unhooked Academy, a mindfulness-based program to help you break free from porn addiction for good without shame, religion, or massive struggle. Some life updates for those of you listening to the podcast. I am now back in Thailand, back in Bangkok, back to where my digital nomad journey all began. And I'm really loving my life here. Tons of things to do, people to meet. There's a lot of co-working and gyms, and life here is just really wonderful. The Thai culture is amazing. It's one of the reasons I always come back here. So that's a little bit about where I am. Some other updates. I'm currently doing something called 75 Hard, which is like a fitness and discipline challenge. I signed up for a High Rocks race with a friend of mine, and also been really diving deeply into the world of diet and nutrition, getting more into ketosis, something I was actually into 8-9 years ago, but getting back into it and really exploring that. So if you want to know about any of those, drop me a line, drop me a message on Instagram or on my website, and let me know if you want to hear more about some of those things. So in this video today, I'm going to share mistakes that I made early in my recovery and things that I really wish I knew at the beginning, which would have saved me so much time, energy, even money, to be honest. So without further ado, these are the 8 mistakes that you should avoid making early in your recovery. Mistake number 1, relying entirely on willpower or not utilizing what we call behavioral architecture techniques. This is an obvious one. It's one that I mention so often on this channel, but when you rely entirely on willpower, it just doesn't work. Yes, willpower is important, and yes, you can and should grow your willpower muscle, but you shouldn't rely entirely on willpower. There are so many other tools of recovery that we need to rely on and that we need to integrate into our recovery if you want to be successful. One of the most important is just understanding how we form good habits and how we break bad habits. And a lot of it has to do with our environment. Something I've said before is that stimulus control is more important than self-control. So as an example, let's say you're trying to break free from eating junk food and you have a big thing for donuts. If you walk by the Krispy Kreme or if you walk by the donut shop every day on your way to work, it's going to be much more challenging to break free from that addiction. And this is because what is in your environment largely dictates your behavior. The same is true for things like porn addiction. Yes, you should use willpower. Yes, you should grow your willpower muscle, but also be intentional about whether you are placing triggers in your environment. Are you routinely visiting porn websites or putting it in your environment in other ways? Another thing could be going to the gym where you tend to ogle women and, check out girls in gym outfits. All the kinds of things that might be triggering you, you have to really start paying attention to what you are doing with your environment and using what we call behavioral architecture to support your recovery. So the summary here is yes, willpower is important, but if it's all you rely on in your recovery, it's not going to last. Mistake number 2, trying to quit porn and masturbation at the same time. The caveat here is that you can if you want to and if it works for you, but it's not necessary to quit both at the same time. I see this time and time again that so many guys who want to quit porn think that it means they need to become completely celibate, they need to practice semen retention, they need to never orgasm again. And this is just not true. The main culprit here, the main thing that's damaging your life so much is the porn. It's not the self-pleasure and masturbation. There are many times where you might want to experiment with letting go of masturbation as well, practicing semen retention, learning how to channel that energy, to hold in that fire and that energy, but you don't have to do it at the same time. The more important thing to learn how to break free from is the porn, which is the supernormal stimulus. It is the thing that is influencing your sexuality and your desires. It's influencing your expectations. You can still masturbate while breaking free from porn addiction. Again, the caveat there, which I'll say, is that you can quit both if it's something that interests you. And I would even encourage you to try. But again, the thing here is that if you need to slip up, if you're just super horny and you have a lot of that energy, to allow yourself to masturbate without porn, that's okay. So really understanding that you don't have to quit porn and masturbation at the same time. Mistake number 3 is trying to do this recovery process with zero support or accountability. Another huge mistake I see is people trying to do this on their own. It is possible, but it is so much harder. There's that famous proverb that I like to share that if you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, go together. Yes, you can get started on your own. You might even be able to build up a 1-week streak or a 2-week streak. But the problem is that if you don't have any support or any accountability, then when you slip up, it's so easy to just stay in the ditch, to just completely isolate yourself and stay in your addiction. One of the main benefits of having support and accountability is that if you slip, or I should say when you slip, because it's going to happen, you have the support to get back on track. You have that accountability of other people saying, hey, don't worry about that one slip, just get back on track. I see this so often as guys trying to break free from porn and they have a slip, and then, if nobody's there to call them out, if they're not in a community, if they're not going to any kind of meeting, then they just let that one slip turn into weeks and weeks or months or even years. So make sure you get support or accountability. You can get it from a friend, but much better if you can get it from a coach or a men's group or some kind of group that specializes in this addiction. Mistake number 4, not paying attention to slippery slope behavior. What I mean by this is not paying attention to things that you might not qualify as porn, you might not count them as porn in your eyes, but they are slippery slopes. So things like checking out thirst traps or Instagram models, these are things you really need to be careful of. Things that trigger your desire, trigger your craving. Again, this kind of goes back to the environmental control or the stimulus control. Looking at these slippery slope behaviors. If your Instagram feed is filled with bikini models or thirst traps, make sure you clean that up. A very simple way is you can click on a thing and say, I'm not interested in stuff like this. You can do that on YouTube, on Instagram, probably on every single social media platform, is to make sure that you are not engaging in that slippery slope behavior. The caveat here for this one is that in the future, when you are well into your recovery, when you've developed your self-control, your willpower, you've gotten deep into your recovery, you're months or years free from it, you have more of an ability to be around those kind of slippery slopes without sliding down the mountain. But particularly in the early days, make sure you're avoiding those slippery slope behaviors. Mistake number 5, failing to notice limiting beliefs or harmful identity beliefs. This one is a tricky one because it can be very hard to see for those of you who have lived an entire life believing that you are broken or believing that you can't accomplish your recovery or whatever it is you put your mind to. But you have to be paying attention to the limiting beliefs, the stories you're telling yourself about yourself. And this is what's going on behind the scenes. If you fundamentally have this belief that you are broken, or if you fundamentally have this belief that you are an addict and you are always going to be an addict, then you will be subconsciously self-sabotaging. You will be destroying your recovery because you are buying into the story. You are identifying with that person who is addicted and who can't overcome this. So you've really got to start paying attention to what's the story that you're telling yourself about yourself. What's the underlying belief? And when you can start to change this and start to believe in yourself, that is when recovery starts to get really supercharged. So start to pay attention and then see if you can actually believe in yourself, believe that change is possible. A great book around this is the book Mindset by Carol Dweck, where she explores that growth mindset, which is the belief that change is possible. Maybe you can't do something now or you can't do something yet, but you can with hard work. Mistake number 6 is beating yourself up when you slip. Again, understanding that slips will happen. This is a long journey and you don't have to be perfect. The thing that I see so many people making mistakes on is when they slip up, they beat themselves up so much that they feel the shame, they feel the pain. And then in order to escape that negative feeling, they feel they need to act out again to escape the feeling. So when you slip up, if you have a relapse, if you watch porn when you're practicing your sobriety, see if you can acknowledge the slip. You don't want to sugarcoat it. You do want to take ownership of it, but you want to, acknowledge it and move forward and say, okay, that was in the past. It wasn't my best effort. Let me get back on track and start again. If you spend all your time and energy beating yourself up, chastising yourself, criticizing yourself, it's going to be harder to get back on the wagon and get back on the path of recovery because you're going to feel shit about yourself. So really see if you can forgive yourself, move forward, and start again. Mistake number 7 is thinking that sexual desire or sexuality in general is somehow bad or wrong or makes you a bad person. This is a deep one that a lot of people, it takes some time to really understand this and break through on this one. For a lot of us who have struggled with addiction to porn or sex, there can be some feeling of sexual shame or some feeling that our sexuality is inherently wrong or evil in some way. And so overcoming this, learning how to embrace your sexuality is a part of the recovery process. Learning how to fully open up to your desires and say, yeah, I am attracted to this person and I do, desire to be with them sexually. That's a beautiful part of being a human. And so to not suppress that, to not beat yourself up for having sexual desires, but to fully embrace it. And importantly, to learn how to embrace it and tap into it in a healthy, constructive way. That's what recovery is about. And finally, mistake number 8, the biggest mistake I see is ignoring all the other problems in your life and just focusing on porn. This is a recipe for disaster because the truth is that the addiction to porn came as a result of unfulfilled needs, of not getting your needs met in other areas of your life, of living an unfulfilled life. We know this is true from the famous rat park experiment. I've talked about this on other episodes on this channel, but just as a recap, they were doing studies in addiction in rats, giving them morphine water, and they found that these rats would get so addicted to the morphine water, they would sit there and drink the water basically until they died. But then one researcher said, hey, these rats are living in cages. It's miserable. They're not happy. What if we gave them a more natural environment? What if we gave them a rat park where they have exercise wheels and other rats to interact with? And they first got them addicted to the morphine water, and then they put them in these rat parks with the morphine water available, and they found that the rats barely touched the morphine water. And what this shows us is that when we are in touch with a deeply fulfilling life, and life that gives us a sense of satisfaction and a sense of growth and evolution and connection. Addiction has nothing to grasp onto inside of us. And so it is so important that in your recovery process, you make sure to start paying attention to the other areas of your life that need your attention. It might be your relationships, it might be your career, it might be your physical health, your nutrition. There are so many things you need to look at. It's not about the porn. Addiction is a signal to check out what's going on in your life that is unfulfilling or where your needs are not being met. So that is the number one thing that I can say is make sure that you don't just focus on porn, that you focus on your life holistically, that you make sure you are living a fulfilling, intentional, satisfying life where you are connected with your integrity, living a value-based life. So there you have it. If you like this video, please make sure to like and subscribe to this channel, and I'll catch you guys in the next episode.